If you stay poor, it's rarely because of circumstances. It's almost always because of unseen mistakes. Mistakes in philosophy, mistakes in mindset, mistakes in discipline. Now, I'm not saying life is fair. Some start with more, some start with less. But the beauty of this life is that wealth, real wealth, is less about where you begin and more about whether you learn to avoid the traps that keep people stuck, broke, frustrated, wishing for more but never building it. So today I want to reveal the 7 silent mistakes that keep people in poverty and how the wealthy sidestep them on their way to prosperity. Because once you see the traps, you can choose a new direction. That's where it all begins. The shift from poverty to prosperity isn't an event, it's a choice. A daily disciplined choice. And it starts right now. Let me share something that changed the course of my life. And maybe it'll change yours too. See, most people, when they get a little money, their emotions go to work before their logic ever shows up. That's a poverty habit, plain and simple. Spending emotionally and saving reluctantly is like watering weeds and wondering why your garden never grows. I've seen it happen so many times. People chase the temporary high of spending, but they never build the muscle of saving. And the cruel truth? The emotional spender will always work for, serve, or depend on the disciplined saver. It's been that way for generations. I remember when I was younger, I fell into the same trap. Paycheck comes in, and instantly I'd start thinking of where I could spend it. I convinced myself I was rewarding my effort. But rewards without results? That's financial sabotage, dressed up as self-care. And the consequence? I had nothing to show for my labor except receipts and regret. Now let me tell you how to flip that script, because that's what separates those who stay broke from those who build wealth. It starts with saving automatically. Not when it feels good, not when you have enough left over. Wealthy people who understand the rules of the game, they don't save what's left, they save first, spend what's left. That's strategy. You can set it up so a percentage, even if it's small, moves into a savings or investment account every single payday, no questions asked. It's not emotional. It's a system. You see, systems remove emotions from money decisions. And when emotions leave, discipline steps in. The wealthy invest intentionally. They know every dollar is a seed. Spend it right, plant it right, and it grows. Spend it emotionally, and it disappears. They research, they ask questions, they wait for the right opportunities, not the first shiny distraction that shows up. And spending, it's not forbidden. But it's done with strategy, not as a reaction to stress, boredom, or peer pressure. Ask yourself before every purchase, does this serve my future or only my feelings? You answer that honestly, and your bank account will start telling a better story. Here's the bottom line. You can be ruled by feelings or guided by principles. One keeps you broke, the other builds your freedom. Choose wisely. I've often said, your bank account is a reflection of your philosophy, not your paycheck. And one of the quickest philosophies that keeps people broke, frustrated, and spinning their wheels is living above their means. Now let's break that down because it's subtle, but it's a trap most folks walk right into with a smile on their face. Living above your means doesn't just happen when you buy a luxury car or a big house. It happens every time you borrow from tomorrow just to feel good today. It's that dinner you couldn't afford, the vacation that came with credit card debt, the constant upgrades to impress people who aren't paying your bills. It feels good in the moment, sure, but so does candy, and too much of it rots your teeth. Same thing with money habits. Living beyond your means feels sweet today, but it erodes your future one bad decision at a time. I remember when I started out, I wanted all the nice things too. I wanted to look successful before I was successful. But I learned, often the hard way, that prosperity never follows prideful spending. It follows discipline, patience, and a willingness to stay below your means while you build real wealth quietly. See, the broke lifestyle is a mindset that says, if I just look successful, eventually I'll become successful. But the wealthy, they understand the opposite. If I practice financial strength in private, success will show up in public on my terms with peace of mind. It's hard to say no in the beginning. I get it. Your friends are upgrading their gadgets, showing off their vacations, driving the flashy cars, and there you are, saying no to brunch, investing instead, stacking your savings. You feel behind. But let me tell you, behind in appearances is way better than behind on your bills. Because quiet, consistent financial discipline buys you options, and options are the foundation of prosperity. Now here's the truth. Living below your means doesn't limit your life, it multiplies your future. It gives you breathing room, builds your reserves, and allows you to invest when others are panicking. It's the quiet power that lets you grow, while those chasing temporary pleasure stay stuck. Every time you resist the urge to spend beyond your means, you're building a future where your potential isn't chained to debt, stress, or paycheck-to-paycheck survival. You're choosing long-term strength over short-term status. Prosperity begins with the courage to look average now so you can live extraordinary later. I learned a long time ago, you can't improve what you don't measure. Imagine trying to drive a car blindfolded. You wouldn't do it, right? You wouldn't climb behind the wheel, cover your eyes, hit the gas, and just hope you end up somewhere good. That sounds crazy and dangerous. But let me tell you something. Most people manage their money that way every single day. No map, no gauges, no clue where they're headed. Just spending, guessing, reacting. And then they wonder why they never arrive at wealth. Wealthy people, they don't operate like that. They treat money like a tool, like a business. They track every dollar. They know where it came from, where it's going, and how it's working for them. They live by the numbers, not by hope. And here's why that matters. What you track, you control. What you control, you can grow. I remember early in my journey, I thought I was doing okay. I was working hard, making some money, but at the end of every month, I had nothing left to show for it. It wasn't because I wasn't earning. It was because I wasn't aware. I was driving blindfolded, thinking hard work alone would build wealth. It doesn't. Awareness does. The moment I sat down, opened up the books, and looked at where my money was leaking, that's when everything changed. I tracked my spending, my income, my savings rate. I faced the numbers, even when they made me uncomfortable. And in doing that, I took the blindfold off. Suddenly, I had clarity. Clarity creates power. Let me tell you, wealthy people aren't lucky they're aware. They know exactly what their money is doing, and they adjust constantly. If an expense creeps too high, they see it and correct it. If an opportunity appears, they have the reserves ready to act. They measure, they manage, and that's how they multiply. But the broke mindset says, I think I'm doing fine. No specifics, no clarity, just hope. And hope is not a wealth strategy. If you want to change your financial future, start by knowing your present reality. Track your income, track your expenses. Review your net worth every month. Build the discipline of awareness, and you'll start steering toward prosperity, eyes wide open. One of the greatest differences between those who struggle financially and those who build lasting wealth lies in how far ahead they think. Most people live their lives in what I call survival mode, chasing fast money, instant gratification, and short-term comforts. But let me tell you, fast money fades. It slips through your fingers as quickly as it arrives because the foundation isn't built to last. If you want to graduate from survival mode into prosperity, you've got to change your thinking from short-term fixes to long-term vision. I used to live with that short-term mindset myself. Early on, I wanted the quick payoff, the shortcut, the overnight success story. But every time I chased fast money, it disappeared just as fast. You get a bonus, you spend it. You get a little win, you upgrade your lifestyle. And around it goes. That cycle doesn't create freedom. It keeps you stuck, reacting, never building. Wealthy people, they operate differently. They think in decades, not weekends. They plant seeds today with the full understanding they might not see the harvest for years, but they trust the process. They understand that real prosperity isn't created overnight, it's crafted over time through steady, disciplined, intentional action. You ever notice the people who build empires aren't focused on the next payday, they're focused on the next generation? They're asking, how does this decision set me up not just for next month, but for the next 10, 20, 30 years? That's how you escape survival mode. You stop living for Friday. You start building for forever. And here's what happens when you think long term. You stop making desperate decisions. You don't jump on risky get-rich-quick schemes. You pass on the flashy distractions that drain your resources. You stay focused, patient, and strategic. The short-term thinker burns out chasing crumbs. The long-term thinker builds the bakery. I've watched people with modest incomes create wealth beyond their wildest dreams simply because they mastered this principle. They consistently saved, invested, learned new skills, and made decisions their future self would thank them for, not decisions to impress the crowd today. The truth is, prosperity belongs to those who plant trees knowing they might not sit in the shade for years. But when the shade comes, and it will, they're resting while others are still running, still chasing, still stuck in survival mode. Shift your focus to the long game. Your future wealth depends on it. One of the most powerful truths I ever learned is that you don't just become like the people you associate with, you become their habits, their thinking, and their results. If you're serious about building wealth, you have to take inventory of the people in your life because your circle has more influence on your financial future than most people ever realize. You can read all the books, attend all the seminars, but if every time you leave you step back into a circle of negativity, limitation, and small thinking, it will pull you back down like quicksand. I learned this the hard way early in my journey. I had ambition, I had dreams, but the people I spent time with, they didn't talk about goals, investments, or creating a better future. They talked about the weekend, the next party, the next gadget, the next distraction. And for a while I stayed comfortable there, but comfort isn't wealth. It's stagnation. It's settling. And let me tell you, broke minds love comfort. Wealthy minds, they live for growth. They seek conversations that stretch them, ideas that challenge them, people who inspire them. When I started intentionally shifting my circle, finding mentors, learning from successful thinkers, surrounding myself with people who had results, I wanted everything changed. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one talking about investments, discipline, or long-term vision. I was in rooms where those conversations were normal, expected even. Here's what happens when you align with the right circle. Your standards rise. You stop making excuses because no one around you tolerates excuses. You stop thinking small because the people around you dream big. You stop sabotaging your wealth because your environment reinforces better habits, sharper thinking, and accountability. But when you stay surrounded by negativity, gossip, or short-term thinkers, your wealth potential shrinks not because you lack intelligence, but because you lack reinforcement. You can only swim against the current so long before it pulls you back. Wealth building isn't just strategy, it's association. Choose wisely, and your circle will elevate your thinking, your habits, and your bank account. Choose carelessly, and they'll drain your potential before you ever get started. Your future reflects your environment. Surround yourself with growth, and watch how fast you rise. Isn't it fascinating how easy it is to stay busy all day and yet go to bed feeling like nothing truly changed? You've probably heard people brag about how busy they are. They wear it like a badge of honor, always rushing, always doing, always juggling tasks. But let me tell you, being busy is not the same as being productive. And in the world of wealth building, that distinction is everything. You can fill your calendar, exhaust your energy, and still stay broke, because activity without direction is the slowest path to nowhere. I remember early in my life I fell into that trap. I thought as long as I was running around, making calls, staying in motion, I was moving ahead. But the truth was, I was stuck. I was mistaking motion for progress. There's a reason the wealthiest people seem calm, deliberate, even quiet in their work. They've learned the secret results matter more than routines. The broke mindset loves routine checking off boxes, attending endless meetings, doing busy work that feels good but adds nothing to their future. It's easy to confuse that with advancement because activity gives the illusion of momentum. But let me tell you, illusions don't pay bills. Wealthy minds, they think differently. They measure their day not by how much they did, but by what moved them forward. They ask, did I grow my income today? Did I build an asset? Did I make a decision that compounds over time? If the answer is no, all the busyness in the world means nothing. I've met people working 2 jobs, grinding every spare hour, and yet they never escape survival mode. Meanwhile, I've seen others who, with fewer hours but sharper focus, build investments, launch businesses, and design freedom. The difference isn't ours, it's intention. So here's the truth. Wealth doesn't reward hustle alone. It rewards leverage, clarity, and strategy. It rewards those who pause long enough to ask, is this task multiplying my future or just draining my time? Those who stay trapped in constant, aimless activity are like hamsters on a wheelets of motion, no destination. If you want to escape that cycle, start being ruthlessly honest with your daily actions. Track your results, not just your tasks. Let your calendar reflect wealth-building priorities, not just distractions disguised as duties. Progress isn't how busy you look. It's how far you've moved toward your financial vision. Choose wisely, and soon you'll be busy counting assets, not hours. One of the greatest financial risks you can ever take is to depend on a single source of income. Most people do it. They build their entire lifestyle on one paycheck, one job, one company, and they convince themselves that as long as that job stays steady, they're safe. But let me tell you, that's an illusion and one that can collapse overnight. I've seen it happen. A company downsizes, an industry shifts, the economy takes a turn, and suddenly everything that person built is gone, not because they lacked ability, but because they built their financial house on a single shaky pillar. The wealthy don't think like that. They understand that true security comes from streams, not a single source. You see, a paycheck is linear. It trades time for money, hour by hour, day by day. But wealth flows even when you sleep. Wealth multiplies through assets, investments, businesses, and skills that keep working long after you clock out. Early in my career, I learned this the hard way. I had one income stream, a job I thought was secure, and I built my life around it. But when that income paused, so did everything else, the bills, the opportunities, the lifestyle. That's when I made a decision. I wouldn't build my future on dependency. I'd build it on diversity. So I started small. A side project here, an investment there, developing a skill that turned into consulting income. It didn't happen overnight, but over time, each new stream added stability, growth, and freedom to my life. The job was no longer my only lifeline. It became one of many. The wealthy create this intentionally. They think in streams: earned income, investment income, business income, passive income. They design pipelines that flow with or without their daily effort. And when one slows down, the others keep moving. That's not luck, that's strategy. Here's what's critical. Your skill set is your foundation. If you want multiple streams, start by becoming so valuable that people pay for your expertise, your insight, your solutions. Once you do that, you take those earnings and plant them in assets that grow. Real estate, stocks, businesses, intellectual property, the possibilities are endless, but they start with the mindset of streams over dependence. Relying on one income is like walking a tightrope with no safety net. The wealthy don't gamble their lifestyle. On a single paycheck, they build a system where money flows from many directions, protecting their future no matter what comes. If you want real wealth, think streams, not just salaries, because one pipeline is survival, but multiple pipelines, that's freedom. Isn't it interesting how often people chase more money but forget to chase more growth? They'll say, if only I earned more, I'd be free. But let me tell you something. I learned early in my life the size of your income rarely exceeds the size of your personal development. You see, money doesn't just land in your lap because you wish for it. Money flows to those who grow into the kind of person who can manage, multiply, and respect it. That's the hidden truth most ignore. I remember when I was just getting started. I was working hard, staying busy, but my income stayed stuck. I was frustrated. I kept thinking, I need better opportunities. But what I really needed was a better version of me. Because here's the law of wealth. If your mindset stays small, your money stays small. If your habits stay average, your bank account stays average. Prosperity shows up when you grow into the kind of person capable of handling it. Most people don't fail because of circumstances. They fail because they ignore the one investment that compounds faster than money: personal development. And I'm not just talking about reading a book now and then. I'm talking about serious, intentional growth reading every day, listening to those ahead of you, reflecting on your weaknesses, building new disciplines, applying new lessons. The wealthiest people I've met, they're students first, earners second. Think about it. You ever notice how the truly successful folks always seem calm? They're not frantic, they're not desperate, they've grown into their success. Their character, their skills, their wisdom, those are the foundations. Money is just the result. And if life takes the money, they rebuild it, because their true wealth lives inside them. The person earning $50,000 a year but never reading, never learning, never stretching is like a farmer planting seeds in shallow soil. They might see a little growth, but nothing lasting. Meanwhile, the one who invests daily in their mindset, their skills, their habits, that person turns small opportunities into empires. You can't skip this step. If you want to double your income, double your knowledge. If you want to create financial freedom, create the kind of self-discipline, confidence, and vision that attracts and sustains that freedom. It's simple. The greatest wealth gap is really a growth gap. Prosperity starts when you decide your personal development is non-negotiable. You grow, your income follows. You stagnate, your finances stall. So make your learning daily, your reflection consistent, and your application relentless. Because the person you become will always dictate the wealth you earn. Isn't it fascinating how often people will say they want success, they want wealth, they want freedom, but the moment risk shows up at the door, they slam it shut? I've watched people talk themselves out of opportunities not because they lacked the potential, but because they feared the possibility of failure. But let me tell you something. The wealthy don't avoid risk. They manage it. They study it. They prepare for it. But they never let fear stop them from walking toward reward. Because the truth is simple. Avoiding risk guarantees you'll avoid the reward too. That's the law. I remember early in my career when I was first introduced to the idea of personal development and entrepreneurship. I was hesitant. I thought to myself, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I lose the little I have? But here's what I realized, staying where I was, stuck, broke, and uncertain, that was already failure disguised as comfort. You see, life itself is risky. Stepping outside is risky. Staying where you are is risky. There's risk in action and there's risk in inaction. The question is, which one moves you forward? The wealthy know that failure is tuition. It's the price of admission for wisdom, for growth, for breakthroughs. They don't leap blindly, but they also don't sit idle, paralyzed by what if. They analyze, they prepare, and they step into the unknown understanding that mistakes are not final, they're feedback. I've lost money before. I've made investments that didn't pay off. But every setback taught me more than any easy success ever did. That's why the prosperous mindset embraces calculated, risk-not foolish gambling, but thoughtful, informed action. They know standing still is the riskiest move of all, because time moves with or without you, and opportunities pass whether you chase them or not. And here's what separates those who stay poor from those who grow rich. The poor mindset says, what if I lose? The wealthy mindset asks, what will I miss if I don't try? They fear regret more than they fear failure. That flips the script entirely. Think about the world we live in. Every great innovation, every business, every fortune was born from risk a leap into uncertainty that most avoided. But those who understood this truth, the law that reward never arrives without risk, became the ones who reaped the benefits. So let me tell you plainly, if you want comfort more than you want success, you'll stay exactly where you are. But if you want reward, if you want wealth, if you want freedom, you must get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because risk avoided is opportunity lost, but risk embraced That's where wealth begins. Isn't it something how life has this sneaky way of pulling your attention in 100 different directions? One minute you've got a spark, a desire, maybe even a dream, and the next you're chasing distractions, answering every call, responding to every so-called opportunity, only to wake up a year later no closer to where you wanted to be. You see, without clear written goals, real, specific, measurable targets, you become a wanderer. And the world is full of drifters, wondering why they never arrive at the destination called prosperity. I've met so many folks over the years who tell me they want success, they want more income, better health, better relationships, but when I ask them to show me their written goals, there's silence. You know why? Because vague wishes are easy. Discipline is hard. Writing down exactly what you want, the amount, the timeline, the actions that forces clarity, and clarity creates power. I remember when I was broke, confused, stuck. I kept thinking opportunity would just show up and pull me out of my circumstances. But here's the truth. Opportunity only recognizes those walking with intention. The day I sat down and wrote exactly what I wanted to earn, exactly how I wanted to live, everything changed. My actions aligned, my distractions diminished, my focus sharpened. You see, life without goals is like sailing without a compass. Every wave looks like a direction. Every distraction feels like a detour worth exploring. But when you know where you're going, you stop drifting. You stop saying yes to everything. You learn the powerful word no. No to wasted time. No to emotional spending. No to relationships or habits that pull you off course. That's how the wealthy move with direction, discipline, daily focus. Think about the wealthiest people you admire. Do you think they stumble through life by accident? No, they wake up every day with targets written in ink, not scribbled in their imagination. They can tell you their income goal, their investment goal, their freedom date. That's why they're not pulled by every shiny object or cheap distraction. They're walking with purpose. The poor mindset says, let's see what happens. The wealthy mindset says, here's what I'm making happen. That's the difference. Without goals, the year passes and nothing changes. With written specific goals, you stack progress, build momentum, and create the life you've been talking about. So let me leave you with this. Vague dreams create vague results, but clarity transforms wandering into winning. Write it down, make it plain, then walk toward it every single day. Isn't it interesting how so many people spend their days hoping life goes smoothly, hoping nothing unexpected shows up, hoping every month feels predictable, yet they make no real plan for when it doesn't? And let me tell you, life will hand you unexpected bills, broken appliances, health scares, economic downturns, not because life is unfair, but because that's just how life works. The wealthy understand this truth early on. If you don't plan for emergencies, even small setbacks turn into life, altering disasters. See, broke thinkers, and I was one of them at one point, live on the edge of crisis. They stretch every dollar, they spend everything they earn, and then they cross their fingers that the car doesn't break down, the company doesn't downsize, or the unexpected medical bill doesn't land on their doorstep. That's called living by chance, not by design. And chance is a dangerous financial strategy. I remember early in my career, I was earning some decent money, finally feeling like I had momentum. But I made a mistake. I spent every penny of it. I upgraded my lifestyle before I upgraded my mindset. And then life, being life, hit me with an emergency, an unexpected family situation that required money, time, energy, but I hadn't built a margin. I was financially stretched thin, emotionally overwhelmed, and mentally unprepared. That setback derailed me far more than it should have, simply because I hadn't planned ahead. The wealthy avoid that trap. They build margin. They treat saving for emergencies as non-negotiable, not optional. They understand an emergency fund isn't about pessimism, it's about preparation. And preparation creates power. Because when life hits, and it will, they absorb the blow, adapt, adjust, and keep moving forward. No panic, no debt spiral, no derailed dreams. Think about it. What if your car needs major repairs? What if you lose income for a few months? What if a health crisis appears? The question isn't if, the question is when. And when you've built the discipline of margin mentally and financially, those events are inconvenient, not catastrophic. They slow you down, but they don't stop you. The poor mindset waits for life to happen, then reacts in chaos. The prosperous mindset expects life to happen and prepares in advance. That's why even in setbacks, they stay ahead. If you want to build lasting wealth, stop gambling with your stability. Build the margin, plan ahead, because staying prepared means staying in control, and control is the foundation of prosperity.